Well, welcome to this month's interview with a Dads Group leader, someone who's out there in the field doing the work and where we can learn from their experience. And so, very privileged to bring you Andrew Kegele from Hartwell Primary School in Melbourne. And I wanted to actually interview Andrew around dad-to-dad discussions and how to lead that. Andrew's been a Dads Group leader for some time and has built up some great experience and skill in this area. So thanks, Andrew, for sharing that with us. Andrew, before we start that, can you tell us about how, I guess, you started, the Dads Group started at Hartwell Primary School?
Sure, John. We started up, actually, I chased down Colin from the Fathering Project very early before he actually shifted from Perth into Melbourne. And so I looked up the Fathering Project to think the fathers at our school really needed a forum or a group or something to help them or get together and talk. So after we established that, we ran a night here about 4.5 years ago at Hartwell, and we had about 60 odd people turn up, I think, out of a school. The school's got 700 students, so it's about 500 families. So it was, it was about 10%, over 10% of the dads turned up for the night. Interesting night, and it went really well. We had a lot of people involved in wanting to come and become part of the leaders group. And probably, as in hindsight, then I think we had about 12 people put their hand up. Wow. And which was great out of the group. But then I found out the group was probably too big and nothing happened. Everyone pointed the finger that way.
Yeah, that's the
and that sort of plodded on for a year or so. So it happened, and we had a couple of sessions. We had some Father's Day, fathers and kids events at the park, kick of the footy, that type of stuff. Nothing really formal. And it sort of petered off a little bit. And then, so we relaunched it again the second year, doing a sort of abbreviated introduction night for the new dads to the school. And then came back to a core group of 5 people, which then helped formulate some other nights, trivia nights at the pub for the dads. We have a monthly catch up at the local bar that's open for anyone, the dads, to turn up just to have a chat. We had once again some kids events. We had an orientation day up at Wattle Park and a few other things here that the kids could go out, and we got dads together, had a barbecue at the end, which is a really good event. So then we've sort of been up and down with the group, and some of the leaders have left, and then that try to backfill and keep the momentum. I also found that a few of them left it to me to do, or felt that they didn't want to stand on my turf. And I said, well, it's not my turf, it's everyone's turf. Please help. I'm putting my hand up for help here. And that sort of helped really well. And they established a WhatsApp group, which has been really quite useful. And particularly last year, that was just everyone sending around a joke or something, camping in the backyard or doing something just to share some ideas of how people helped. So it sort of kept the group alive, and to the point when we all came out of lockdown in Melbourne, the event in December, I think, was probably our best attended event by dads. Everyone was keen to get out, and just blur of frustrations of trying to deal with homeschooling and all sorts of stuff. So it's been up and down, and we're coming back out now where we ended up having an event at the start of this year. And it was only about 20 odd people, but it was quite a different event. Once again, there's a few new dads there, so we went over some of the topics. It's like a bit of a revision for dads of bringing it back to the basics.
Fantastic.
Being there, unconditional love, and making them feel special, and showing that making them feel worthwhile. And from that, we started to stem out into other things, kids and technology, how we're dealing with the work-life balance now. And it sort of just naturally grew into this conversation, which went past our allocated hour, but the conversation continued on. It was just a sort of a natural progression into how we're dealing with this thing now, because work-life balance is sort of merged. In this environment, and will continue, I'd say. So
fantastic, and that's so cool. You found that content really, obviously, very relevant to the dads. But what I love, and what I've picked up in the times that we've met on around the grounds, and also I know that you've come to some of the workshops that I've run as well, is that you do those dad-to-dad discussions really effectively, and often the Dads Group leaders that come to us will be looking at how do we actually make that happen. So I'm really interested, if we can drill down on that, Andrew, is your experience around building the culture, or what are the steps that you would take to that you've maybe taken, or what's naturally you've occurred in your group that's allowed for that sort of atmosphere or those dad to dad discussions to be really authentic and almost organic that I hear that you have, if that's true.
Yeah, I think one of the things I learned in one of the early presentations where I just, well, a bit verbatim, just read off the sheet.
Yep.
It's a bit static, but when I started to share and show a little bit of vulnerability and actually share some of my personal experiences, yeah, because hey, guess what? We're all human and we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
So to aim for that perfection is unrealistic. We just got to deal with what we've got.
Yeah.
And when you start to share some of that, and suddenly you'll start to see a little hand pop up, and then another little hand will pop up, and then conversations start. And I particularly find it's easier for them to do, in particular when we start to do that smaller group. So you break into 3 or 4 or 5.
Yeah,
just
great.
keep the smaller groups because people feel a little bit more at ease.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll compare it to the 2 ones I've done this year. I suppose the 2 sessions I've had, and I think we've touched on this before, but for the rest of the group, I did one at Hartwell Mines School, and I only had say 21 dads turn up. And for me, as the leader and promoting and pushing, I felt a little bit disappointed by that turnout. I went, could have done better. But then to think about how the night went and reflecting back on it, we had some really great conversations about this work-life balance and shared some strategies about how we stop our work day at home and then we go outside and then actually started to talk about something like which I'll talk about a couple of times, but there's like your game face. As an athlete or as a sportsman, you step onto the field and you put on your game face. You're focused on the sport. You're focused on that. Yep. But if you apply that same sort of strategy in to when you say come home from work, or you take that 5-second break before you turn your computer off and go out to your family and kids, what type of person do they want to see? What type of person do they want to receive? Do they want to receive you? Yep. Or do they, and we started having this type of conversation. So you're preparing yourself and some strategies that how we can do it. It sort of grew for me, exposing myself a little bit to let them feel comfortable in sharing and making the group small enough until eventually the whole group was talking. Yes. But it was like a progressive process. It was me showing it, then smaller groups, and then the group. And then we compare it to the group, I think, in Rangeview here. There was about 110 dads in this group, which is quite a large group. A really fantastic turnout from the school, well supported by the school, and the principals and vice principal were there and everyone. And to try and get communication into the group, I found it difficult at the start. But once again, I tried to show some vulnerability and had some self-depreciating humour, and turning the computer off at the start of the presentation probably wasn't the best move, but it gave a little bit of comedy, especially when all the IT people in the room were trying to watch me do it on the big screen, how to fix my computer. But apart from that little stuff up, the other thing I'm conscious of when I'm engaging is my body language. If I'm a bit more reserved, my hands are out facing them to show basically that I'm open. I'm not at the lectern or talking. I'm out involving getting closer to the group. So we're having a conversation as opposed to me talking. And I think that it sort of softens it up a bit. Having the smaller groups, once again, it started, but in the big group, it's more pressure on the participants to put their hand up because there's a bigger group and they feel a little bit intimidated perhaps. Definitely. But by end of that night, by breaking the smaller groups, then sharing some stories, the end of that night, everyone was putting their hand up and there was a bigger room in participating. From that, that school came back to me. They'd done a survey in the school and came back to me with a whole bunch of points so that they actually found it invaluable that, that people wanted to talk. Yep. And I think this is the thing that we're not that we don't like to talk. We want to talk, but we just feel afraid, or we feel intimidated, or we have this man up, harden up, don't be soft type attitude. But absolutely. There's a general respect. So it's just by and it's a harder thing to work out how to do that. And everyone's got their own personal style, and you have to be natural and you have to be showing yourself
Yes.
and just be yourself. I think is the best way I've done it.
So I often say that that's more about leading than presenting, isn't it? So it's actually leading, and like you said, you gave the example of vulnerability, and also how have you felt even presenting the content? Is it good? And again, in trainings that I would do with Dad's Group leaders, I often say, don't assume to be the expert. Don't put yourself in that position of being the expert. You want to know what the content is so you can talk about it or present it, but almost like putting it in the center for everyone to look at and then
Yes.
discuss and really lead and facilitate that discussion. But knowing the content and making it personal, where you might share a personal story,
Yeah.
and is that a good catalyst for that sort of vulnerability? Where we might say, we're talking about technology tonight. Actually, when I was reading this, it made me think on my own experiences, and then therefore maybe lead with a story where you've got it right or wrong, and and then sort of say, guys, this is what we want to
Oh,
talk about, or the Fathering Project suggests this is a really key element for us to talk about. Let's do
yeah.
that.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Even just going back to the simple bus principle, like being there, I've
Yeah,
got a list of examples
yeah,
of when, and I suppose I've in a unique position. I suppose I've got an older child and I've got two younger kids with me now,
yeah,
and the relationship with my older child was that's where it is, and it's not perfect, and there's mistakes. I list a mile long, the
yes,
things I could have done better, and things I can still work to strive and get better.
yeah,
But the way, and I suppose that's also through being participating in the fathering project, coming up with a list of strategies I've learned and implemented now. So my relationship now with the two kids with me now, Robbie and Charlotte,
yeah,
is amazing, and it's fantastic, and it's thriving. The relationship's thriving, um, and so I'm learning some tricks and myself,
yeah,
and by talking this, we're not we don't, none of us really know all of it, and
no,
that's the
that's
whole
right,
thing.
that's right,
But just having those little catalysts in the program,
yeah,
just those simple principles, and to think about just making the children feel worthwhile, to show them that they're worth loving.
yeah,
They're worth being around. I want to spend my time with you.
yes,
Oh, yes, I'm busy, but I will make time for you.
sending that
And
message
so for
regularly.
me, that's sort of where I've gone with that in
Yeah,
terms of
beautiful.
yeah.
And do you think, what about even steps for other Dutch group leaders who might be even new? Do you use icebreakers, or sort of again, when even in constructing the evening, how do you sort of build that trust, or those sorts of things? Can you do to sort of help build that?
Um, use the series of icebreakers. Firstly, the turning the computer off at the start of the presentation, as I
That's right.
mentioned, was a
Again, that's showing vulnerability.
that got a lot of conversation going in the room without me even prompting it. So that was a unintentional one. I don't
Yeah,
recommend it though. It's probably not a great one, but certainly I try to firstly, people are comfortable in the room
yeah,
when they get to the groups. The second time I break them out, I will. This is just sorry, moving on from an icebreaker, but sort of an
yeah,
icebreaker. But I'll make sure that they move to people that I don't know or haven't met,
yes, okay,
and so they get introduced to other people and they're sharing it. And
yeah,
sometimes that's a good thing for them communicating, because
yeah,
if they know this group of people, they may not open up, or they may. It might go the other way. You
yeah,
see, so
right,
it sort of helped them that way. It does. I don't probably spend an awful lot of time on it,
hmm,
but a little bit, just making them feel at ease and comfortable.
yeah.
Um,
It's still guiding the room by the sounds of it, like you're saying.
yeah,
You
yeah,
break into a group of three. So as a
yeah.
facilitator, very much engaged and very intentional.
Yeah, and sort of highlighting too that tonight's not about me preaching. It's
Yes,
not about me preaching because I don't know a lot.
good, that's good.
It's about me facilitating discussion
Yeah,
and providing a forum.
spending the time.
Um,
Yeah, that's
and,
right.
and and together we've got a list of things and tips and stuff. But as a forum, we can actually add to that. So
Yeah, that's good. Not being the expert, and often again, I think it's really powerful. We can invite the group and say, let's talk, because the expertise is already in the room. We're all dads. We've all got
mm,
experience to share. Let's find a topic that we can talk about and encourage and inspire each other. What hasn't worked in the past besides your IT issues? But what hasn't worked? Where have you ever gone too heavy with the discussion and the group wasn't ready? Is there things that where you've thought, actually, I wouldn't do that again? Is there anything there?
I think that was in the early stage where I tried to keep it too formal. I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
uh, adhering to the script a little bit too much, and trying to get things moving, where when I allowed it to sort of flow a little bit more, people, you know, they were in the mood. You do have to sort of be conscious of time and stuff like that, and you want to get the main points of the message across. But I haven't been too rigid on the formality. I think that's for me. I felt them more natural, and I think the room, and it's also reading the room as well.
Yeah.
And reading who's in the room tonight and how they're feeling and stuff, and that just comes with doing it.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? And I think, and this is what I often say to dad group leaders: it's an awkward space. We get it, but go all the way in. Don't dip your toe in it. And I think that's where we've got to be a little bit intentional, but really really take control of facilitating the room, and know the content enough that you can have it there, but be more sort of sensitive to the room, like you're describing. And I think, and it does take experience, but we say get in and have a go.
One thing that I have done recently is I talk about this game face, and then sort of bring that back from. I don't know why you don't think of it earlier, but you know you do that when you're a sports person. Then you come into business or do something else, and you go, why don't I do this? And you prepare yourself. I take the 20 seconds or so. Yeah. What do I want to get? How am I going to present myself?
Yes.
Am I going to be upbeat? Am I going to be out there? Am I going to be enthusiastic? And you visualizing yourself. You got to be you're showing some enthusiasm in the room. So you're bracing yourself for it, and you visualized it. And I've gone into there feeling like I'm ready to go on the footy field, as opposed to I've just turned up and I'm a bit stressed. And you've got to you compose yourself and go in. It's doing a presentation, but it's actually because you want to be involving and get these people participating. That's what I found that little break, doing some box breathing, doing all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, just preparation.
Prepares me to engage.
Really good. That's really practical. I love it. What do you think the best topics you have? Or again, if there's a dads group that's out there and they've had a couple of dads and kids events and they've got a bit of momentum and they're thinking, I think we're ready to go with the dads only discussion. Do you think the bus is a great start, or what have you found that's always gets great discussion and those sorts of things if you want to get some momentum in a dads?
Yeah. Well, Raintree, I think I mentioned it. Raintree did a survey post the meeting. They sent out a survey, very simple one. Survey Monkey went out and came back with a list of topics, and they came back pretty much, there's like the Pareto print, 80%. We're talking about communication, work life, mental health, financial pressures. And I went, very similar to what I just had at Hartwell. And we're more similar than we are dislike.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the power, Ed, when we have, again, dads group leaders sometimes get a bit nervous about this, but whenever I've done a launch, it's for a dads only launch, when we ask the question, what do our kids need from us and what are the challenges, we all come up with the same answers, and it doesn't matter what school or what demographic. So we know there's something intrinsic in us that knows what our kids need from us. And also we have, unfortunately, the same, and maybe fortunately, the same challenges, which, once we've shared that, there's this, calming within the group and goes, okay, I'm not the only one. I think that's powerful.
Yeah, I think that was a big powerful thing is when, and everyone starts to hear, oh God, I'm thinking that myself. Really? And then you're not Robinson Crusoe anymore in a room. You're in a room full of people that are exactly like you, and you go, that's like the aha moment in the room. Know when you've hit that, when everyone starts to go, oh shit, you're right. That's when everyone sort of relaxes and the conversation starts. So
that's it.
Yeah,
very powerful. Thanks, Andrew. We've got two talkers on the line here, so we could go for probably an hour, I think, so today. But I will wind it up. So we can
please do, because you can't stop me once I start.
And I'll just keep going too. But thank you for all you do. You have volunteered a few times for us in different roles, and for our focus groups and those sorts of things. And again, thanks for giving us your time today to give some insight to the other dads group leaders out there. In closing, can I tell you, there's some advice, one little snippet of advice that you'd give to a dads group leader who's about to go into a dad discussion or starting to plan it? What inspirational advice would you give them?
You're looking for me for inspiration. Oh my God, okay, down the wrong channel there. But simply, it's just brace yourself. I just think that you'll make mistakes, it'll stuff up, but that's okay. Yeah. And if you can be lighthearted about it and don't take it all serious, just keep it relaxed. Keep it relaxed. Yeah. People are very accepting. The dads are very accepting. You're there as a volunteer. You're not there as the knowledgeable person. And you and them are all the same. the auditor's there to facilitate discussion. I would simply say, but go in prepared. Just take that 20 seconds before you go in. How are you going to present yourself?
Yeah.
How are you going to present yourself?
Yeah.
And then just relax into it. And don't try and beat yourself up about it. And also, I've learned not to take it personally when I say I only get 20 people out of a school, and bloody hell, that's a bit shit. But then again, we've had really good conversation. So I've gone away with 20 people who are talking about something quite in depth, as opposed to trying to do it in a room. You can't do that in a room of 100.
Yeah, that's right.
But so we've had 20 people talk about that, and that as a catalyst group may spread.
That's made an impact.
That's a great outcome for me. It's a great positive outcome. So,
and often we talk about that in the organisation. What are we doing? What's our purpose? Our purpose is to inspire and equip. And have we done that tonight?
Yeah.
It was with one, then that's what we're here for. That's fantastic.
So
thank you. Thanks, Andrew.
No worries.
Always appreciate you, mate. Thanks so much.
Take care. Have a good day.